Welcome to Record-ology.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Okay, tonight we are going to be talking about belt-driven record players and record player belts, why they are the way they are, how to replace them, and all the good stuff you need to know about belt-driven turntables. First of all, if you have a turntable like this that has sort of this built-in platter that's not removable without taking off the circlip, and we've done shows where we've taken like the suitcase player apart, and it's quite a bit of work to get this thing apart. Once you do, you can get to the belt, but it's a little bit more work. So I'm going to start on this end and then work my way up to a record player that's a lot easier to change. But sometimes, you know, over a long period of time, a belt can be stretched, it can wear out, it can sometimes crack. It's not something you're going to need to do a lot. If you're listening to your record player every day, you may have to replace it every year or two, if that. So it's not something you need to do very often, but I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at how these work anyway. So yeah, if you've got an all-in-one or sort of an entry-level player like this one that looks similar to this, you do have to take it apart to get to the belt, but there is actually a belt in here driving this. The motor is somewhere over here. Now, why do record players have belts? You hear the term direct drive, you hear belt drive. What's the difference? Well, a direct drive turntable has a motor that is either directly connected to or is the platter itself. So when the record player is rotating, it's actually the motor spinning the platter directly via gears, or it is the motor itself. Some of the older Techniques units are actually the platter is the motor. Now, the benefit to a direct drive turntable is that a 33 RPM motor on a direct drive turntable only turns 33 RPMs. So it's got a lot of torque. It can come up to speed very quickly. For DJ applications, it allows them to go in reverse. You can't really do DJ work with a belt drive turntable. But a belt drive turntable like this one has the benefit of isolating the motor and the motor vibrations from the platter and there in turn the stylus. So there's less likelihood of rumble and motor noise being picked up through the stylus. Now, with modern direct drive turntables, it's not really as big of a deal, but when you're looking at a lot of antique units, and you and I have talked about that quite a bit in the past, that's a consideration. Older direct drive units may have some rumble. I know some of the first gen LP120s had a little bit of rumble that people said was kind of an issue. But anyway, back to belt drives. With a belt drive turntable, the motor spins a lot faster and connects to the platter via a belt. Now, I'm going to show you how to take this one off. This is a little bit more accessible. So this is an AT LP120, and the belt right back here. A lot of these platters, when you take off the mat, will have a series of holes that do different things. Sometimes you can see this one lines up with different gears and screws, and these line up with the pulley itself. Also, this works really handy to pull the platter up if you put your fingers in like that. So pulling the belt off of the spindle right there, you can just lift up right there. And the belt is sort of part of the platter. So if you were to replace this, you would just string it back around here, and then it's really easy to put back on. You just put your finger in here, and when we reviewed this unit a couple weeks ago, we discussed how to do this. But you simply pull it back a little bit, rotate this around, and then place it back on top, just like that. And right over here, you can see it's very easily identifiable. The motor pulley usually has this brass fitting right there. But that's all there is to it. You know, it's definitely something that you can do. It's a user serviceable part on a turntable such as this. Same thing with the Crosley T400 and other record players that are similar to that. Most belt drive turntables, once you get out of that, you know, lower end, will give you a user serviceable feature in that you can get to it pretty easy. Okay, now let's keep going up the food chain a little bit here. This is an Orbit Basic turntable. So this is belt driven, and this is interesting because it uses an external cog and pulley system for the belt drive. So as you can see, the belt is clearly visible on the outside versus the inside or underside of the platter. These are super cool. They're fun to watch. They're just really neat in general. I'm going to show you how to replace the belt on these. Now, unlike the LP60 that we just looked at, this uses a tubular belt. And if you buy a replacement or order a replacement, it's going to look something like this. It's just a tube of rubber. And putting these things on can be really tricky. In fact, if you watched the first time I did this on one of the shows, one of our misadventures together, you can see me sort of fumbling with that tubular belt. You know, there's no channel. I'm going to go ahead and take the platter off of this as well. This is the entry-level Orbit, so this has the MDF platter, which is kind of unique. But there's no channel in the side. It's just flat. And, you know, while we're here, this is just so cool. Their, you know, patented inverted bearing system, which is just super, super cool. All American. Love it. But anyway, there's no channel on the side of this platter for that belt. So how the heck is it supposed to stay on? And how are you supposed to put it on? So here's the trick. Here is the trick. The trick is keeping constant contact with the belt. So start back here and keep tension on it. So kind of stretch it tight over the back. And then stretch, keep your fingers kind of touching and sliding back like this. And then as you get to the back, you can use your thumbs or however feels better for you to kind of stretch it around that pulley. Now, look how loose this is. See how loose that is? That was my first thought after I put it on. I'm like, wow, how is that gonna, you know, pull this, let alone pull the record up to speed? But it's designed to do it. The motor pulley assembly right here has some give. The story behind the U-turn orbits is fantastic. You know, all these parts individually made here in the United States. The motor's not, I believe the motor's Chinese, but they buy a high-end motor in bulk and they cherry pick the very best performing motors out of each batch to go in here. So they throw away or discard a certain amount of motors so that you can get they can extend to you a really good price on a motor and put it in here in a cost-effective way. So it's really, really neat. I don't know how many they discard for everyone that they keep, but they keep the best of the best for you and for me. So yeah, depending on which cog you go onto here, which sprocket, it's either spinning at 33 or 45, and the tension that this motor provides for each speed will keep the belt on, not only keep the belt on, but give you very, very accurate speed. So which is a really, really cool thing. This uses an AC synchronous motor. Very cool technology. And I asked them this question. I'm like, how do you guys know that this thing is staying at the correct speed? There's so many variables here. I mean, there's so much elasticity in the belt. The motor pulley assembly has some give in it. You know, how do you really know what's going on here? But they explained it to me. The AC synchronous motor is a big part of it, but just super, super cool. Anyway, that's the gist of how to do it. I mean, you just kind of keep tension around it, string it around the side, and there you go. Now, let's look at, that's their entry-level unit. Let's take a look at their high-end unit. These are all super customizable too, all of the U-turns, which is really awesome. So you're going to see a lot of different colors and, you know, styles and materials. Not really styles, they kind of all have a similar style, but in terms of materials, you're going to see different materials. So this is the U-turn special. I apologize for the glare there. I got kind of funky lighting tonight, but this is the plinth on this, instead of being made out of MDF, is made out of maple, solid maple. And it's just gorgeous. And then it's got this beautiful, clear acrylic platter. And we've talked about platter materials and, you know, the resonance properties, blah, 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 blah. But I just wanted to show this to you on another unit. The same basic principle applies. So it might be easier to see on this. You just start off in the back. Obviously make sure you're using the right part for this. I'm not saying you necessarily have to buy it from the original manufacturer, but at least buy the right one. I mean, you're not going to want a belt that's too tight or too loose. I mean, this is precision. It still amazes me that you can have this, this belt not only stay in position without a channel, but also have the belt kind of stretched to fit the larger cog for 33 and then go down, or is it the other way around? And then go to the other size, and you can feel that it loosens up. I mean, it's a little bit looser, but then it tightens right back up. And a lot of it has to do with a pivot back there. So super, super cool. That is a beautiful, beautiful record player, the U-turn Special. By the way, I'm going to put a link in the description below. Any of these record players, if you're interested in, I'll put a link down below for a good price on one. one more for us to look at here really quickly, and a slight variant on what we've talked about in terms of the belt mechanisms. This one is, again, very similar. This is a Crosley C8, a beautiful, beautiful record player. I've got on here a nice slice of acrylic for a platter mat. You can tell I'm storing my platter mats here because there's a felt one under there, and you wouldn't do both. Kind of like the LP60 we looked at earlier. This has a steel platter or aluminum. Is it steel or aluminum? You tell me. And you can see these cutouts here. So this is a part that can be used with different, manufacturers or whatnot. But in this case, the belt is external. But it's a little bit different because this belt is flat. It's a, I don't know if there's a term for a tubular belt versus a non-tubular belt, but this is like a regular rubber band where it's kind of flat on one side. But the same principle goes. If you want to see what it looks like under the hood there, you can't take the bearing out, but there is the center of that. And again, these parts, can be used. This might be, okay, you know what we're going to do? I'm curious now. Let's pull out the aluminum platter to the LP60, made by Audio-Technica. Actually, and some of you guys know I talk about this ad nauseum, but these record players, sometimes they're made by the same company, even though they're branded differently. Let's look at them side by side. LP60 on the right, the C8 on the left. So similar, it's got the two holes in the middle and then the larger ones on the outside edge. I don't think it's the same exact model, but similar. It is similar. But what's interesting is you can tell that this, even though this model doesn't use it, has a place for that belt to go around the inside edge, just like this one does, which it actually uses in the case of the LP60. But there you go. So putting this one on is a little bit trickier because you need to be, oh, is there a groove on the edge? No, there's no slot on the outside edge. It's also smooth. Same basic principle, just make sure that you keep tension to that belt as you go along. You don't want it flipped. I made that mistake all the time. Don't hook it there. It's really easy to let it flip and get mixed up, and it's not going to make a huge impact, but for the purest sound, you want it to be, you don't want it flipped over anymore. You want it flat. Okay, I think we got it on good. Now, what you're going to notice is this has a singular pulley, kind of like the LP60 did underneath the hood. This one's external. It doesn't have those two cogs like the U-turns. And by the way, to change speeds on the U-turn, you literally just move the belt from one cog to the next. That is by design feature because that motor spins at one single speed, one single RPM. That's by design. That way the motor, once it's tuned to a certain speed, can spin at a singular velocity, and you control the RPM that's transmitted via the gear ratio to the platter by moving that belt from one cog to the other. But in this model, it's different. It uses a different kind of DC motor that actually spins at 2 speeds. So it's a 2-speed motor. Therefore, we change the speeds with the knob down here, which changes the speed of the motor, which then in turn changes the speed of the platter. So just a different way to do it there. A belt, once it's in place, is really low maintenance, no maintenance type of thing. Again, you're not going to have to mess with it very much, if at all. I haven't maybe once had to, I don't think I've ever had to replace a belt, and I'm using these things all the time. So something to know about, though. I think it's cool. If you're like me, you like the tactile feedback and interaction and, just really getting your hands dirty on this stuff. I think it's super cool, super interesting, and I hope you guys do too. So anyway, there you go. That's all about belts and all the cool stuff that goes along with a belt-driven turntable. Now, I want to tell you guys about a cool show I got coming up this weekend. Something super fun planned for you. We are going to be, and the show isn't just about this. It's going to be at the end of the show, but we are going to be running over a record player with a car. I promise you, it's not clickbait. It's actually going to happen. We are going to run over a record player with a car. How? Why? Which one? What are the circumstances surrounding this? Don't miss Record-ology this coming Sunday. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned to the channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss that or any of our other cool videos. In the meantime, guys, we're getting close to fall. Can you believe it? Summer's coming to an end. I hope you had a great summer. But in the meantime, keep an eye out for that cool vinyl, for that cool retro tech, and stay tuned to our channel for more fun. All right, guys, happy record hunting. We'll see you next time.
I'm not very very good at this.
Neither am I.
Okay, what can we lose?
Thank you for watching Record-ology. Stay tuned for a new show every Sunday and Wednesday. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check us out on Instagram and Twitter.